Every morning at exactly the same hour, Bruno, a calm and intelligent German shepherd, returned from the forest carrying a stone gently in his mouth. His owner, Elias Moreau, would glance up from his porch, shake his head, and smile. "Another treasure?" he'd say, watching Bruno carefully place the stone beside the old tool shed, tail wagging with pride. At first, Elias thought nothing of it. Bruno had always collected odd things, sticks, pine cones, once even a cracked compass, but stones were new. By the end of the first week, there were 9 of them, all different in shape, all coming from the same direction, the narrow ravine behind Elias's hillside cottage. Elias had lived in the quiet mountain town of Valmer for nearly a decade. He valued routine, solitude, and the steady rhythm of nature. But Bruno's strange habits stirred his curiosity. The stones were unusual. Some were heavier than expected, with sharp edges and faint metallic lines running through them. One seemed to shimmer slightly when held under the porch light, as if something inside was trying to remember the sun. "One day you'll start bringing gold," Elias joked. Then one morning, Bruno returned with the 11th stone and everything changed. Instead of dropping it, he barked once, sharp and urgent, and stood perfectly still, eyes locked on Elias. Only when Elias followed him down the path did Bruno release the stone. As Elias wiped away the dirt, he noticed a deep reddish tint beneath the surface. Something about it felt deliberate. The next day, Elias showed the stone to his neighbor Martin Keller, a retired surveyor with a love for old instruments and forgotten maps. Martin examined it carefully. "This isn't ordinary rock," he said. "It looks processed. Where did Bruno find it?" "By the ravine," Elias replied. Martin nodded slowly. "Then this weekend we should take a closer look." That Saturday, they followed Bruno along a winding trail into the forest. Near a cluster of juniper bush, Bruno stopped and began digging with quiet focus. Martin's handheld detector hummed, then beeped insistently. Beneath the moss lay scorched stones, twisted wire, and fragments of old wood, evidence of something long forgotten. That night Elias couldn't sleep. He washed the stones one by one under a desk lamp. Several bore faint, straight markings, tool marks, not nature's work. His search led him to an obscure online archive. One brief mention caught his attention. A remote lodge fire, 1959. Owner, Stefan Lauren. Collector of rare minerals. Structure destroyed. Owner never recovered. The local librarian confirmed the story. Stefan Lauren had been a self-taught mineral enthusiast who vanished when his lodge burned. Days later, Bruno returned with another stone. This one holding a small metal fragment engraved with barely visible numbers. 595. Elias shared photos online. A geologist replied within hours. Likely garnet-rich rock. Possibly corundum. This time, Elias and Martin returned with tools. Digging where Bruno insisted, they uncovered pottery shards, a rusted lantern frame, and finally metal. Buried beneath tangled roots lay a corroded safe. Inside were cloth-wrapped bundles of gemstones, garnets, peridots, and deep red corundum, glowing softly in the light. A hidden collection protected for decades by silence and soil. But Elias didn't sell them. Instead, he mapped every place Bruno had visited, 33 points forming a circle around the remains of the old lodge. Weeks later, historians uncovered a notebook at the site. Its first page read, "Collection complete." When the local museum opened an exhibit, they called it Bruno's Path. At its center sat the first dull stone that began it all. One evening, a man knocked on Elias's door. "My name is Julian Lauren," he said softly. "Stefan was my grandfather." Inside the envelope he carried was a letter written decades ago. "If these are ever found, use some to build knowledge. Leave the rest where they belong." The next morning, Elias returned to the forest with Bruno. Together, they placed several stones back beneath the pine where it all began. Bruno sat quietly, as if his task was finally complete. Elias later used part of the collection as value to create a scholarship for geology and environmental studies. No publicity, no profit, just respect. Bruno still wanders the forest, but he never brings stones home anymore. And sometimes Elias wonders, maybe animals don't just see the world as it is. Maybe they remember what we've forgotten.